Hi everyone, and welcome to another session for the 4D Summit 2020, or better known as the Summit at Home. My name is Brent Raymond. I'm a senior software architect at the Art Institute Museum in Chicago. I also organize the 4D Method user group. You can find us at 4dmethod.com. I'd like to preface my session with saying I hope everyone is well and staying healthy. And sad that we didn't get to see you and host a little bit here in Chicago, or for the attendees in Europe. It would have been good to see you there as well. Quick introduction. Some of you may recognize this guy as Ferris Bueller from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It would have been a good Chicago reference as it was filmed in Chicago and also at the Art Institute of Chicago where I work. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. So that's what this session is all about, keeping your work in scope. And being able to communicate your work to your stakeholders. How do you do it? There's a lot of different options out there, a lot of good options, and certainly what I'm going to cover in JIRA is not the only option, and let alone the best or the most recommended option. It's just a great demonstration of how these kind of systems can be integrated with 4D and why you might want to. So we'll talk about what is issue tracking. It's a new concept to some of us. We'll talk about why not do it yourself. It's an API world. We'll get a quick overview of JIRA. I'll talk about the setup, the code, and the integration within the 4D development environment. And questions will have to wait till later, due to the nature of the one-way video we're making here. So issue tracking. What is issue tracking? As a 4D developer, your time is in very high demand. There's so much wonderful functionality you can build with 4D. We have a long list of requests from our users and clients and potential clients. How do you manage to oversee so much progress without going mad or missing out on opportunities? You can't do everything for everyone at one time. How to keep track of requests, ideas, bugs, dreams. Do you use, I've been guilty of all of these. Anything from a text editor with just a big ongoing list of stream of consciousness, or a spreadsheet, which is always nice to keep things better organized. You just take care of the squeaky wheel, as they say, the loudest person screaming at the moment. Is that what gets priority? Or all of the lovely email chains going back and forth are a nightmare for trying to keep everything in scope and all of the ideas in order. Or is it all organized in a stack of bar napkins as you're dreaming away and scratching down ideas somewhere? Or do you already use an issue tracker, which would be a novel idea? And how do you communicate progress to your stakeholders, like paying clients or those who control your paychecks? Do you use Google Docs, which are wonderful for sharing, but again, may not be the most elegant way to handle all of this. Again, the nightmare of email chains rises again. Or do you do surprise code updates? Boom! overnight. Here's your code. You're welcome. Drops mic and turns off cell phone. Again, bar tabs for taking out your clients to say sorry after the surprise code updates. Or perhaps an issue tracker. The most efficient and prolific of you have the best answer using an issue tracking system. An issue tracking system is like a database of to-do items where you can add qualifying metadata, keep record of comment histories, chain related issues together with each other, and collect work in a series of upcoming version releases. Non-developers love to see the progress that comes out of these issue tracking systems. Bar graphs for the win. They're easy to see that bugs and new features have not been overlooked or forgotten. Don't worry, it's on the list. Have said that several times in my career. And they're wonderful for keeping work in scope while reassuring users that their pet issues are up next. And they can actually see that, see progress as it happens. It all comes back to this benefits you as a developer or a manager. You get better peace of mind and control over the scope of your projects, and you can take it more easy, like one of my favorite actors, Jeff Bridges. There's a lot of strands in old Duder's head. Luckily, I'm adhering to a pretty strict issue tracking regimen to keep my mind, limber, to quote The Big Lebowski, or another one of my favorite quotes from Tron. You're really messing with my Zen thing, man. Keep it in the issue tracker, please. But put it all together, and you have better peace of mind and happier customers. And so that's all worthwhile doing. Okay, do it yourself. Question. This room is my basement, so this room is not full of, is only full of one developer. However, all of you out there in the 4D development world are very talented, accomplished folk, presumably friendly and attractive. I don't know. That's up to you. But, you could make a glorious issue tracker using 4D. It's certainly possible. You have a great tool to do that. You would have ultimate flexibility if you did. Go for it, I would say. You'd save subscription costs to vendors like JIRA if you get paid plans. And really, it's an easy concept. How hard can it be? Again, famous last words. If you wanted to do all of the features, it would certainly take you some time to get it all right. Maybe you'll even make a beautiful unicorn application. And if you do, let me know, and we can show it off on 4D Method in one of our user group meetings. And you can show us all of what your fluffy unicorn can do. So why not? Why not do it yourself? There's fantastic open source even and affordable vended applications out there. Just to name a few, JIRA. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Redmine, we use that at the museum. And I believe 4D, the 4D company uses that for managing their development. There's Trello, Bugzilla, Test Track, we used to use that at the museum, and hordes of other ones. There's a whole Wikipedia article that is called Comparison of Issue Tracking Systems. I encourage you to go check it out. There's just a ton of them out there. They believe it or not, they track issues. Again, not rocket science. You can do this yourself. But with some of these options, you immediately get a web front end, mobile apps, support for any issues, updates all the time these days. So out of the box, you get a lot of great features. And one of the most important factors is some of your stakeholders might already be familiar with the tool. They can immediately start interacting and assigning work right away without the learning curve of having to get used to a new application, a new environment. So follow the money. You wouldn't be the first person to make a working issue tracker, and your strongest value is your deep involvement in the business sector. That amounts to your security and profit. That's where you have the most leverage. You can help people to make wonderful business applications and really add value quicker there than by doing an issue tracker yourself. So use your issue tracker application, vended perhaps as a tool to superpower your 4D business application development skills. And please just don't snap your fingers and make us all disappear. Okay. It's all in the API. It's as one of my my colleagues has said in the past, and I'll repeat it again. If you want your application to be around tomorrow, you better put a good API on it. The best applications of today have great APIs, and they've put a lot of time into developing them. In fact, a lot of these systems out there, their front ends are built around their APIs. They're publicly accessible APIs, and in their web interface or other interfaces are just an extra layer on top of it. It's APIs are often discussed in IT worlds, but in my experience, not everyone knows exactly what we're talking about when we talk about an API. So for those of you, an application programming interface, API, this comes from Wikipedia, I believe, as well, is an interface or communication protocol between different parts of a computer program intended to simplify the implementation and maintenance of software. It can be used as a sort of microservice in order to access data and business functionality from different platforms, say from a back-end server to your mobile device. Who knows what it would be? It's basically, it's a flexible API can be consumed by a variety of different technologies, even ones that don't exist yet. So whatever becomes the fad tomorrow, they can still, presumably anyways, unless it's very many years into the future, consume and use the API that you create. So get out there and make an API for your application is all I'm saying. 4D is great at integrating with modern APIs. Lucky for us, we have a wonderful tool for both serving and consuming APIs and connecting to other applications through their APIs. It makes a terrific back end, and for connecting, you can use HTTP client commands like get and others. We have now native JSON objects in the language, dot notation. We've got our own web server, And something that some of you may be familiar with is development environment macros. We can tweak. We can create new capabilities within the 4D development environment, and so that can be a real super strength if you learn how to use it. Um, yeah. So getting back to JIRA, one of the reasons that JIRA has become so popular is its REST API. All functionality in the JIRA ecosystem is exposed through the API, like I mentioned earlier. Uh, the the demo that I'll be going over in this session offers some very basic functionality examples, and I won't even start adding all of the exceptions about it may not be entirely production ready code, but some great demo code anyways. But if you're interested in working further and creating fancier integrations with JIRA in your production coding environment, you will want to familiarize yourself with the JIRA documentation, which is actually fantastic. I mean, they've got very good examples out there of how to use their API, and it's all available online. And also, there's other people that do this kind of thing too. So there is help out there for you. Yeah. So moving on to what is JIRA. If you've had any experience with other issue trackers, the interface of JIRA is nothing terribly new. It just it works well, and it's like we said, one of many good options. This is what the interface, kind of a default interface, can be configured to look like. I didn't do any special configuration in order to see this kind of interface, but there are other canned varieties of how your interface can be set up, and there's many different ways to use JIRA. It doesn't just have to be something for bug tracking and development tracking. They've got all kinds of stuff, including JIRA Service Desk, but they all have similar API structures, and so whatever you do here can be applied elsewhere as well. In a JIRA issue, you'll have things like a key, primary key, that could look something like QL4D. In this case, just a quick shortening of the project name and a number. You have the summary, the title of the issue, description, text, blarf of what you're trying to do. You can add multiple comments. Other developers, if they're in your team, can add their own comments, and so it provides a way to capture discussion in a way that makes sense in relation to this feature, this issue, this bug, whatever. You can throw in attachments, files, and whatnot, screenshots. You can set a status, it's in progress, it's in QA review if you have a QA group. If you do, you're very lucky. And you can set a priority, labels, which are kind of cool. They're just, you can put in any word you want, and that way you can categorize. It's a completely customizable way to categorize your issues. And you can estimate time. You can set a target version for when this issue will be included in a release. You can do things like mention people, which will perhaps send an email or have an update notification go to their mobile device that says, hey, look here, I have a comment for you. You can collect issues and versions for release, assign issues to teammates, prioritize issues based on business requirements, labeling them by module, which is also a nice thing to do. These are our email issues. These are web API issues, that kind of thing. And you can even add your 4D method references for better integration. You can say, for this issue has fixes in this method or in this form, or this, anything, any way that you want to reference a piece of code in JIRA is always a nice way to hook it back to your project. So I won't go too far into depth in the setup section here. The white paper that's included, that will be available for this session, has some information, but again, it's quite easy. There are different tiers of feature levels of plans with JIRA. You can do a lot with the free one. I recommend the free one if you have very basic setups, very simple list of projects and intentions on who's going to access this information. You can choose, as I mentioned, from different setups. Like they have one called Kanban, Scrum, bug tracking. This session will use a bug tracking setup for the interface, and then you just go and you create a project. You can log in using your Google account. You create a project, give it a name, give it a key, which oftentimes is automatically generated when you're creating the project. Right, so we use the bug tracking template. With the free setup, you can add, I believe, 10 users at least at the date of this recording. Or at least at the date of writing these slides, which is a couple months back. But you can have up to 10 users access the system, which is great because you can automatically add, presumably your whole team if it's up to 10 users. You have up to 2 gigs of storage, which isn't a lot if you're going to have big documents, but it's a lot if you're just taking screenshots and whatnot. It's plenty enough for starters. The only catch, all of the standard JIRA functionality is included in the free tier. The only catch is that there's no privilege control between projects. So if you're using this, if you're making this accessible to your clients and different companies, and if you want to have some privacy between the projects, you'd probably be better off with more of the paid tier to keep them separated. But right, there's certainly enough features at paid levels. Once you move on up, lots of storage, lots of space. They'd love for you to pay for their higher tiers, obviously. But for this, we are just going to do the free one. So once you've created your project, in order to use the API, you would go to manage your project. There will be a link in there to manage your project. If you are already logged into your project, you can just go to the link below here, /manage/API tokens, and you can create an API token that you'll use in your REST calls to JIRA. This demo uses basic authentication to connect with JIRA. If you are in medical fields or banking, finance, and whatnot, you may even be required to use higher security like OAuth, and you can certainly do that. However, we're taking the easy route because this is a demo. So you'll need to create an API token. The demo code here is using my API token that I set up for the purpose of this demo, which will likely stop working because I will take it. I encourage you to create your own accounts and your own API tokens in order to try this code out in the future, which isn't as much fun as it working out of the box, but you'll have the video to go back and look at anyways. So in the code library that's included with the session, there's a handful of methods. They all work very similarly. You'll have an init method, you'll have a user, a project method. Both of those return information about the user, the project, the current project that you're querying about. You'll have the ability to search the project for different issues based on different criteria. You'll have a method for making new issues. You'll have a method for pulling all of the data about a particular issue. A method just to launch a browser and open an issue in the browser. You'll have a method to update issues, delete issues, list things like priorities and status transitions. Status transitions are just another way to say what is the what's the status. You know, is it in progress? Transition. They call those transitions just because for different kinds of issues, presumably a feature would have a different list progression of statuses than a bug would. Or at least you could set it up that way. And you can have a transition so that you can't hop from new directly to QA. You have to go to in progress, whatever, peer review perhaps. All of these things are configurable. The code, the JIRA module that's included within the project is it is a V18 project. It's all of the code is single object parameters, and sometimes you'll have it'll return either an object or a collection, whichever one makes sense. If you're getting a list of things, oftentimes a collection is appropriate. It uses dot notation, orda. All of the API results that are coming back from JIRA all are JSON, which flow right into our native objects and collections. So that's fantastic. There's currently no error handling. Again, exceptions. You know, your mileage may vary. Caution for using such things in production. But you know, the objective here is just to show how wonderfully 4D can be integrated with a system like this, and very easily with very little work, and get a lot of wonderful functionality for very little work. So a little bit more talking before we jump into the actual code demo. The real benefit that you'll get, it's one thing to be able to see how easy it is to connect with systems like this, but the real fun thing to see with 4D is the actual integration within your development environment between an issue tracking system, be it JIRA, Redmine perhaps, and the 4D development environment. As far as integration goes, the demo will show a sample JIRA browser dialog, an example of a user-facing dialog. Again, this is just an example, not pretty, of a user-facing dialog for creating a new issue in JIRA. One of my favorite parts is you'll have a collection of macros to use in the method editors for integration within your own development environment. And yeah, and you know, all of this leads to providing real-time feedback and you know, show your stakeholders how much progress is being made as you're working through these issues. Yeah. So the macros that are included are in no particular order. other than sometimes it's useful to select an active issue that you're working on. You can also list issues and pop-ups. You can open issues in the browser directly from the method editor environment. You can set the status of the current issue to whatever is appropriate. Say, boom, done. I'm starting work. I haven't done anything. It's in progress now, so solution coming. You can add a comment directly to the method that references the JIRA issues, the JIRA issue that you're working on. You can add a comment to the JIRA issue with method informations, which is quite nice. You can add a comment to an issue with a block of code that you have highlighted in your method. And a really nice feature is you can add a link to open a relevant method and chunk of code directly from the JIRA web interface. So a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun working on this. Again, if you're interested more in working with macros, and I hope that they do continue to add new features in the 4D development environment for using macros, and there's some really terrific stuff you can do through macros currently. If you want to research that more, there's documentation in the 4D design reference. So onward to the demonstration. Okay, so here we are getting to the fun part now. With the session materials, you'll be presented with a JIRA project, which will be a folder full of all of the ingredients that go into a project folder now, including a macros v2 folder with the JIRA macros that are included in the project. Definitely check that out. We may take a quick peek at that a little bit later to see how that's structured. If you're new to macros, definitely look into them because there's a lot of nice things you can do with them. But anyways, let's go ahead and launch 4D V18 and the JIRA project. And first thing that pops up is the JIRA demo window here, where you'll be able to put in your JIRA username, the API token. Again, this will only work for a little while, and you'll need to put in your own username and API token, presumably when you're testing yourself. And the server is basically the your user, your project, .atlassian.net. Yeah, so that's you'll want to plug that in, and then for convenience sake, you can add it. The demo already adds the project key, but if you've got this information plugged in, you can then reach out and there we go. Click the hamburger menu. There's no hamburgers on it, but there's a list of project keys that you can choose from. So we will. Oh, I think that was just a little bit slow. Darn you, Wi-Fi. Anyways, and if you already know what issue you want to work on, you can also go ahead and click from a pop-up list here of the issues. Yeah, so, and if you change anything, you can click update. Then we have the browser window here. Again, this is less a demonstration of how beautiful an interface can be. After all, why would you do it in 4D really put too much work into this when you have the whole JIRA interface, which is better. So you can double click on an issue and it will open it in the browser. Nothing too surprising there. You can add a comment, so you can say, oops, hey look, comment. So click update, and then it will automatically put it in the issue. Again, nothing too crazy. Kind of still falls into the category of why would you want to do that through this interface anyways. You can see the labels, the status. You can set the status in here, to do, in progress. Go ahead and update that. You can update the description. Go ahead and update either of those two, and reload your browser window. And you can see that, thankfully, it works. Great. Okay, so very basic browser functionality here. And you can also create new issues. So it's just a very basic interface. In the Create tab, you can see what a very basic interface would look like for creating new issues that you could have in your own application. Let's go ahead and try and do one called Demo Issue. Here you can select the type from a hamburger menu. These are the different types that come by default in the JIRA issues. Now, when you click on these hamburger menus, it's important to note that, and maybe now is a good time to step into the code, that this is being drawn directly through the JIRA API. This is not stored locally. So we're coming in here, and you'll be pulling the current project. You're using the current project in the JIRA project method to get all information about the project. You'll be accessing a collection of issue types and getting a list of names using extract, the extract member function. Let's step into that method. The first thing that it does in the method is checks that the initialization has been done for the module. Then comes into the init method, which you can either pass an object to init, and it will use that that object to init the module by using this ob copy to shared object, which I believe is an ob copy functionality that's coming in V18R versions, but wasn't here just quite yet, so it had to be coded for the moment. But in this case, since we're just pulling the init, we just want to get the see if the init was successful. It's just returning the storage JIRA object, which has all this stuff in it, like the current issue. Very guess what? It was in the first tab of the demo interface. So the headers that you pass to the calls, the password or the token, API token, the server, was the init successful, and the username, all of that is stored in storage. So the init was successful. You use the JIRA init object, shared object that's returned for the username and password. Most of the methods actually look like this. There's really not that much going on. getting the server, the endpoint. For all of the methods, I include a link to the documentation for those methods, for those calls. So if you want to go directly to the documentation, you can do that just by those links using the get project call. And you can look and see what other things, interesting things, can be done from that. It's always nice. I always find nice things to ask 4D for as far as features. It would be nice if we could just select this and go directly to the browser. Maybe later on we could do something like that. But right, so in this case, the result, which comes directly back from that call, gives us this. Way more information than you would really care about. But you can cherry pick. You don't need all of it. In this case, we are cherry picking the issue types. The issue types for this particular project. So in this project, we have, in this case, it's an improvement, task, subtask. I guess if you could see all that. Right, and all of their information like avatar ID, description. So you could expose all of this from within 4D if you wanted to. And that's what we're doing. We're pulling a list of issue tasks or issue types for a collection of them and putting them in the form variable, form collection issue type names. Voila. And then we are using the join member function to create a pop-up menu and choose from them. There we go. We want an improvement. Better burger menus. It's a priority. Again, very similar code. Just this time it's getting the priorities list. We won't go deep into that, but you can guess what it looks like. And we're setting it to medium, and we are saying this is user interface related and also food related. Then we create it, and it kicks you out to the browser to show you the issue that it just created. Again, darn you slow Wi-Fi. Xfinity shakes fist at cloud. But yeah, normally it's faster than this. So you can see that it worked. Okay, and this is how the labels come out. Labels, food, and user interface. Then you can also go back here, and in this case I had to reload and see the new issue from within this interface. Right, so let's take a look a little bit further under the hood. This is what fires initially, so we're hard coding these things. Again, you're going to want to come into this demo method and put in your own username and password and project and current project. And you can see here that it's searching on the issues that are available for that are in your project there to put into the list box. And the list box is quite simple. All of this is quite simple. Get right down to it. All being stored in form variables. Also, this being a collection list box. We are using the new collection list box way of things to use this. So we're getting all of the attributes back for the issues and then cherry picking what we want to show here. So it's quite easy to just pick out any other columns that you want to have. So we have this .key, this .fields.summary, this .fields.issue .name. You can drill into each of the objects that are returned from the API. But just this new way of handling the collection-based list boxes is really phenomenal for fishing your way through this complicated data sets and responses from the API, and using it, being able to use it immediately, very simply, without really any code. There's no code behind that. But the search, okay, so more information on the search since we're here. You can either pass something called JQL, which is contains a potentially complicated string of search criteria, kind of like SQL, except it's JQL. And the JQL could contain any one of these values, or you can, the way I set it up, you can pass the project or the key or the issue type, summary being wildcarded, and so on and so forth for the search. The search handles some of the intricacies of working with their API, which aren't too bad, but there are a few hoops that you would have to jump through. So if the value type is JQL is text, then we use the JQL. If you pass the JQL, we use that. Or for each one of the other parameters that you pass in the input, if they exist, such as summary, status, fixed version, or any other one, we put those into a JQL statement with an and between them, and we hit this endpoint search and return the results, which is going to be a list of issues. Right. So again, here's some of the documentation on the search call that we're using. And while we're at it, you can see what JQL looks like. So here's the search call. All kinds of different interesting things that can be done with it. Here's it being done in curl, but more interestingly, what is being returned from a successful call. And JQL, everything you'd want to know about it. Anyways, so getting back to the code, everything follows a similar structure to this, and so we don't need to look at that too much. But a really nice way to play around with this functionality, if you want to see more about what each of these methods does, is there's a test method in here. So we've already seen the init. This is the setup, and one step at a time, you can step through the debugger, and it builds a description object of everything that you are working with. So you can throw that in your debugger and see everything that is returned for current user. Roles, display names, your email address, so on and so forth. If you wanted to have access to any of that, you could then have access to it. The project list, again, values are a collection of information about each one of the projects. So you can use that for said pop-up lists. Right, so have fun poking through this, you can test with creating new issues of different types, bug, a problem in current method. You can set the reporter. You can immediately assign it to somebody. You can provide an estimate, say 2 days and 4 hours. That's the way that they do their estimates. You can open the issue that you just created using open issue. Oops. Let's see, I guess I'd have to step down to that. Maybe I can go to here directly through the code. Open issue is really just you pass it an issue key, and it builds the URL for you and opens it in the browser. So groovy, right? Awesome. A lot of fun things you can do there. If you just wanted to nuke your whole project, you can also delete all of the issues after searching for anything related to that object, accessing unreleased versions, so on and so forth. So that's all fine and dandy. That's pretty cool. But what about integration? Okay, so since you asked, right, so let's go ahead and run the demo one more time. And it keeps kicking it to my other monitor over here. Right, so you've got all of this at your fingertips now, so you can do cool things like immediately say, well, I'm working on this piece of code, and I'm using the drag icon here to pull in a comment in my method that I'm working on, and it automatically makes a nice string that you can add directly to your code. Or say I would like to use instead, these are the standard macros that are included, but these are the ones that are included in the session materials. I would like to say I want to choose an issue to work on. So it goes out using the macros and provides you a pop-up list of different issues that you want to start working on. Let's go ahead and start working on the demo issue. Great. You can actually see that the current issue became QL40-63. All right, cool. So I'm in a method now and reaching out to JIRA, and all right, so I found some code maybe down here where I want to say right, I'm going to set that issue to in progress. You could have added some response there, obviously, but I skipped one of the macros. So if you highlight QL40-63, you can open it in a browser. Or since we know already, since the current issue has been set, you don't even need to highlight it. You just say, go ahead and open it in the browser, and it knows that since that's the current issue, that's the one that I want to open up. You can do things like, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can, for the current issue, you can set it to in progress, which I believe we did. You can now see either in the browser or here. The browser also highlights the current issue in green and updates the status to in progress. Another thing you could do is set it to done, awfully similar to in progress. You can add a comment to the method in regards to this current issue. So let's do that. Okay, since I knew that the current issue was QL40-63, it says bug here. Nice. So we're tying it back into QL4063. Now if you come back years later and you want to say, geez, what was I doing at this point? Oh man, I want to see that issue. You can just say, open this issue in the browser. Now say it was, we're doing demo issue an awful lot. Say it was demo issue 54. Since it's an old one, it doesn't make sense that that's the one that we're working on currently. We could also open that one in the browser. And surprise, surprise, it goes to play with bugs. Okay, so that's cool. So now we can reference issues in 4D. We can go directly to the discussions that have happened in the past, presumably, about those issues and what the original description was. Let's see what else we can do. We can add a custom comment to an issue. This one is going to go to 63. Again, fighting with my second monitor. Add a comment. Custom comment in demo. And we can either go back to here and reload it. You don't really need to reload because we didn't make a new issue, but you can see that the comment was created. Or you can say, all right, I'm working in this piece of code and I discovered that, say, these lines are related to the issue that I'm working on. So you can add method detail comment to issue. And the highlighted code will pop into, it will reference to say, see JIRA test. And it will pop into, and it will include in a formatted manner the code that you have highlighted, which is really nice. But, this is all one way. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go from JIRA back into your 4D project? I think so. Let's give that a try. So let's do the final macro. Add method detail comment to issue. Linked. And then go back to our JIRA. In the browser. And now see JIRA test is hyperlinked to localhost 80 access code endpoint and the method name. And you can say switch to 4D to view the code, and it will open it up, I promise. Like that. So, how do we do all this? I won't belabor the point, but I think a good place to start is by taking a really quick look at the macro file. Which is actually really simple. Most of these are all calling JIRA macros, the JIRA macros method. But specifically, you want, in order to do most of what you want to do, we need to make sure to add version 2, to add some of the higher level macro actions. So we call JIRA macros with an action open or an action update and in detail of the status transaction, setting the status to in progress, or we also can do, we can pass it code, say, by passing it in a method parameter here. We can run new object action update with the status transaction done. So that's right. That's how each of these work. It's actually running that method. So this one's not different. It's just, I just saw that. Yeah, and then action method comment, action issue comment, and so on and so forth. And then in this case, we're adding a method link to the method path. So cool. Doesn't tell me much, but now you can see what the structure of the macro is. So let's go back and check out what the macro code looks like. You can imagine that it's kicking out cases to each of the different actions. Now, this whole first part, well, the first part, is the macro parameter is getting the highlighted text of whatever you had highlighted in the method, which is handy in some cases, not always. This part is looking to say, do you have an issue key selected? It does a search on the key as a first step to every macro to say, am I working on the current issue as it's set in storage, the active issue, or am I overriding the active issue by highlighting an issue key? So you can do it one of two ways. Either way, it'll say, is the thing you highlighted a valid key? Then use that. If not, use what's in storage. Cool. Then, if it still doesn't have an active key from storage or an active key from your selection, then it kicks into here and it does a search for any of the issues in the project, and you can say select active issue, and that's where the list comes up. Great. So moving on down to the case statement for the actions, that's the selecting current issue. What do you know? It sets in, by way of a init, it sets the current issue to the issue key that you chose or set, one way or another, highlighted. Opening the issue, you can guess what happens there. Passes the input of the issue key to open issue, builds the URL and opens it in the browser. The method comment, this issue summary just provides a centralized way to construct what the comments should look like. Again, you could change this. In this case, it's just the current date, current user, JIRA issue, key, the summary, and then a dash to let you type in something, and it passes that back in the highlighted method text to put that into your method. Or the issue comment. This is where it actually creates the issue in JIRA. In this case, it's just using request to get the comment, whatever you're adding, and updates the comment by way of update issue. Now, let me finish here, and then we'll take one quick look at update issue, and then I think we'll have a pretty good idea of how it's all tied together. So the issue comment sets it from request, or you could be passing update from the macro, and the update kicks back a code block. So if we look back at the method detail, adding the method detail, the action is update, and you're updating comment. And if the comment has the text method link in it, these tags, then they'll actually be used in the update issue. But yeah, if there's text highlighted and the text wasn't an issue key, it will pass it in code block to the input for update issue. Now there's a lot of magic packed into update issue. The objective here, and it's used all over the place as you can imagine, the idea here is to obscure a lot of the intricacies or uncomfortable nature in some ways that the API is used so that it can be really simple to just pass description, but what it's really doing down here is packaging it up in the way that JIRA expects it. So they have this document format. Let's see, the document structure. So all text that you're passing to JIRA needs to be in this document structure, and this method attempts to structure it correctly for you so you don't have to create this mess. But if you want to have fancier comment structures, you'll have to build more structures like this to say, here's our separate paragraphs or different formatting for each of the words in the text. So this is just for very basic purposes. Yeah, so coming into update, setting the priority, the reporter, and preparing this for passing it to the endpoint, and then following up with second passes in case this particular endpoint can't handle everything, such as the status transition. Setting the status is done with another endpoint. So if you pass a certain number of parameters, it will use one endpoint or another or both or all of them. In this case, you're passing a code block, and so it's packaging that up into text that will then look like code. It will look like in this case this is how you construct the link and what the link goes to, and also in here it's formatting it as already formatted text in the comment. Woo! Right. That's the actual code block. Up here is just the comment itself with the link. But yeah, so that's a mouthful. I encourage you all to trace through it and see what is happening in each of the calls. A lot of potential for expanding on the ideas here. It'd be quite easy to create a Redmine module that has all the same functionality as the JIRA module. But what's a lot of fun is if you like this kind of thing, is to come into this test method and to see what description looks like in the end. And I provided an example of what that actually looks like as an appendix, and it should be distributed with the project with the session materials. But yeah, so there's just a lot of stuff in here. But if you're coding around and trying to expand on the ideas in the session, you'll want to take a look at say, what are these transitions? What do they look like? To do, in progress, and how do I drill down into each of these this JSON here, into these objects, and get what I wanted to get. And sometimes you just kind of got to go fishing with these APIs. You say, well, I know I can see it in here, but where does the comment text or the description. How do I get to this description, or the list of labels, or the priority? And so it's just good to go into the actual response here, and maybe try and find that says bugs. I want you to do it because you never touch bugs. Play with bugs. So you get the idea. Okay, that's it for the demo. Have fun. There's a lot of potential here for being able to tie in your code into the issue tracking system, and having the issue tracking system link back to your code. It's very, very exciting. And we'll just take one more quick look at how the link works. Yes. So I knew I forgot something. So how the browser links back into your 4D project can be seen a little bit through on web connection. So it's looking for access code. Again, you'll want to harden this up if you're actually using it in your own environment, and grabbing the method path. So everything after access code / is going to be the method path. And you probably couldn't see it, but it was showing a notification to go and look at that. Setting the response. I switched to the 4D project to see the code. And right, and this is what actually opens the method to coming from JIRA. Some things that would be really cool as far as the macros go would be that as more as mentioning a method name is wonderful. That's super nice. It'd be nice by way of a macro to also be able to see the line number, perhaps, and other information, say about the the state of the method as you're in it. So instead of just saying the method name, the line number 21, and to automatically reference that in the comment in your issue tracker. But perhaps one day. Anyways, hope you liked the demo. That was the demonstration. Questions, please do reach out to 4dmethod@gmail.com or discuss on the 4D site. Again, my name is Brent Raymond. I organize 4D Method, and I'm at the Art Institute of Chicago, and you can see my LinkedIn link right there. Reach out and say hello. Thanks so much.